My parents knew my wife cheated and my baby wasn't mine. Update. Story 1. My mom knew baby wasn't mine but kept her mouth shut. Plus update. Even though it occurred about a month ago, I'm still outraged about it. 26-year-old guy. My ex-girlfriend, 27 female, with whom I've been in a relationship since high school, cheated on me. She allegedly couldn't take the guilt any longer and informed me there's a strong probability the 10-month-old baby boy I believed was ours was really from another man. It turns out that I am not the father. I'm quite irritated and wounded. And, more than anything, I feel like a stupid. We're clearly finished. I told her I didn't want to see her again since I'd moved out of our apartment and was now living with a friend. I'm working with an attorney to get my name removed from the birth certificate so that I can finally be done with them. I believe everyone has decided to confess their sins to me since my mother is now confessing that she knew the kid wasn't hers and apologizes for not saying anything. She was aware that the baby may not be mine since my ex was pregnant. My ex contacted her weeping and confessed everything when she initially found out she was pregnant because she was afraid I would discover I wasn't the father. It's one thing to have a cheating ex, but honestly, my mom, feeling even more betrayed that she, of all people, would conceal this from me. The one person you're meant to have faith in and whose first inclination is to protect you. I still can't believe it. My mother keeps apologizing. She didn't tell me because she hoped the kid was hers and didn't want me to be upset. A complete 10 months of caring for a kid I believed was mine, and she feels this was the better conclusion than I do. Getting a paternity test after delivery so I didn't waste all this time. At the very least, my father and elder brother are irritated by what she did. But no one will leave me alone about how I'm treating my mother. Everyone thinks I'm punishing her too harshly for this, and she felt she was assisting me at the time. That is something I must forgive, but I'm not sure whether I'm capable of doing so. To be honest, I'm not sure what I should do regarding my mother. She's always been there for me, but they seem like things I'll never be able to recover from. Any suggestions? Update. The last 2 weeks have been very lengthy for me, but with all that has happened, it seems like an eternity. It took a long time for me to recover from my enraged state. When I broke numerous objects and went on a lonely excursion to clear my mind, I felt as though the world accepted my version of events. The assistance I've gotten here has been helpful. It's a good feeling just to be heard, to be honest. When I came home, I had a long conversation with my mother. I told her all I needed to tell her, including the fact that she chose to support a cheating liar over her own child despite her good intentions. And then I stepped back and let her say anything she wanted to me. All of this nonsense about wanting to have a family with my girlfriend, about wanting the child to grow up with a loving father, about not wanting to damage me is ridiculous. Then I informed her that I'd had enough of her. To be really honest, nothing she could ever do to earn my trust would ever make me want her back in my life or stop me from seeing her as a person I despise. Even if I apologized, she has died in my eyes. It is better that she knows why I do not want to see her again. Not with the way this has screwed up my life thus far. My mother absolutely disagreed with me on this point, but I just told her that if she is that desperate for a child, she could contact my ex-husband for assistance. However, none of them will be able to harm me in any way in the future. You can imagine some of the abuse I've received from other family members, but the minute I proclaimed that I was separating myself from them as well, the abuse ceased immediately. Only my father and a handful of other people are aware that I have changed my phone number. The strangest thing about it was that I felt a lot lighter after I had that conversation with her. It took a few days for me to fully comprehend and accept what had happened. My father, at the very least, is there for me. He was there to support me when I was depressed as a result of all that had happened to me. Concerning the issue with my ex-husband and his unwillingness to seek out the biological father, that was a colossal failure of a show. Getting her to do this for me required a great deal of persuading. My question was if she felt that killing me mentally and emotionally wasn't enough for her, since she was going to battle having me included on the birth certificate, while all I wanted was to be rid of them completely. A few days ago, she finally disclosed who it is, and she has vowed to collaborate with me in order for me to get my name removed off the baby's birth certificate, because it was most likely someone we knew personally. I had surmised that the reason she had been so evasive about disclosing who it was because it was someone we knew. Nobody in my family, at least, was aware of it, and even if I had a sneaking suspicion, it still hurts. The snakes in your life that you didn't even realize you had. It has an impact on your life. This is something more I'm attempting to absorb while it's still fresh in my mind, trying to go through it all and, hopefully, come out the other side of it. Legally, it may not be a tough battle to win the case, unless, of course, she changes her mind, which is very impossible to forecast in advance. All I want is to be done with them and not have to pay for someone else's kid for the next 18 years of my life. I'm hoping she doesn't, because all I want is to be done with them once and for all. Please accept my apologies for the absence of a happy update. I hope you understand. At the very least, I've been able to identify and avoid the really toxic persons who have entered my life. To be clear, I already have an attorney on my side who is fighting to get my name removed off the baby's birth certificate. Story 2. Last night I learned my wife is cheating on me, can't tell anyone. After 15 years of marriage, my wife and I were no longer as close, but we had a son who is 4 years old, and we are both amazing parents, and we are a really happy family in general, so we were able to go on. I was depressed, and I got the strange impression that my wife had been seeing someone during the past few days, given how distant she seemed to me. To convince myself otherwise, I told myself that the feeling I was experiencing was a misunderstanding. I went out with a group of high school friends yesterday and returned home at about midnight. My wife was getting ready for bed on the baby cam, which I checked as I stepped through the door and into the home. Approximately 10 seconds later, I strolled into my bedroom to change clothes, and my wife claimed to be asleep in her bed. I kissed my child and made my way downstairs, and as I was leaving the room, I saw my wife typing on her phone, which I immediately checked the baby cam for. I was aware of what was going on at the time, but I didn't do anything but wait for her to fall asleep before examining her phone. When I was at work, I happened to overhear my wife's talk with a guy about how they couldn't resist each other and how they wanted to one another. When our child was born, my wife's libido seemed to have decreased, or so I was led to think, and I was made to feel like a hypocrite for expressing my want for more. She didn't seem to have a low libido, based on the fact that she was mocking him. For the sake of brevity, I roused her from her sleep and faced her. She couldn't even pretend it wasn't the first time they'd met, and they just started talking without anything supernatural taking place. Since I couldn't sleep, I sat by my child and read the messages that had been sent to me by other people. I called the guy in the morning and instructed him to come to my neighborhood since I was familiar with the situation. Due to the fact that his wife worked at the same company as me and that they had a 2-year-old child, I was prepared to ruin his life. When he arrived, I was prepared to beat him, but he just walked up to me, trembling, and apologized. Given the fact that he didn't press it, I was certain it was my wife who had done it. In the end, I didn't hit him. Instead, I ordered him to F off and never come near me or my wife ever again. She sought to approach me and engage in conversation with me. I wasn't even furious, I just believed that this was where our 15-year marriage had ended up, and I wasn't even blaming her for my feelings toward her. She was just stating that it was a solitary blunder and that we should treat it as such in our own lives. That is why I am irritated when she says that because I am acknowledging that something has happened to me. She should, at the very least, acknowledge the wrong she has committed. I can't tell anybody what happened because I want my child to have a family. All I want is for him to have a family. I have periods of feeling strong and periods of feeling. She is now putting my child to bed, and I am writing this while feeling as if I have been hit by a truck in the stomach. Regardless, I'm expressing myself to complete strangers to get it off my chest. Story 3. I, 31 male, am sterile. Fiancé, 27 female, miraculously got pregnant. Baby looks nothing like me. How do I address this? This was our first child after many years of trying. My husband and I soon found out that I was infertile. We decided to accept it and to stop putting up so much effort, claiming that we would figure out what I should do in the future later. It was obvious that we were having despite the fact that we weren't trying it. We found out he was pregnant after she missed her period for a few days and we were shocked. I was ecstatic and thought it was amazing. I was not alone in thinking it was fantastic. We made light of the fact that she got pregnant as soon as we stopped trying. In the words of the doctor, the child was a miracle. There was nothing I could have done to be more happy on the night when the baby was born. I couldn't wait to bring her home because I was excited at the prospect of being a parent. My attention was immediately drawn to her pale appearance after just a few days of caring for her. In case you're wondering, I'm black and she's white, just in case you're wondering. I was certain that she'd darken a little bit over time, and I didn't want to overthink the situation. Then our friends came, and while the ladies were inside, we were enjoying ourselves in the backyard. They all stated they didn't want to concern me or cause difficulties, but they wanted to know whether I had ever had any suspicions that my fiancé was cheating on me or if I had ever suspected him of cheating on me. At first, I felt I was being odd, but after a while, I realized what they were getting at. I answered in the negative and we spoke about our concerns regarding the baby's skin tone. I tried to brush it off, thinking that the infant would darken after a few minutes of exposure. Having now had the kid for 5 months, I can't help but question whether she is really mine on a daily basis now. Her hair is quite fine. She has a very delicate appearance. No kinks, curls can be seen in her hair which is completely straight. I realize she's a baby, but I've seen many of newborns that have retained their natural curls at this age. She's also still rather pale, to be honest. With each passing day, she looks to be becoming more and more Asian in her appearance, which is something that has worried me the most. Her eyes are overly extended, and they are nothing like mine. I don't want to offend anybody, but her eyes are nothing like mine. Is it strange that I'm having doubts about my fiancé when it would have never occurred to me to do so before? Is it simply my paranoia getting the better of me? What should I do in order to cope with this situation? What do you think? Is it really important for me to say something? The thought that the child is somehow mine and that I would accuse her of sleeping with someone else is my biggest fear at this point. I am completely at a loss on what to do. Please be of service to me. Update: I'm not sure where to begin. Because my thoughts have been all over the place recently. One of the reasons I didn't publish right immediately was because I didn't want to overwhelm you with them. Many changes have occurred in my life and I've had to cope with a great deal of stress. My daughter was not born to me as a biological kid. I feel a little part of me was mentally prepared for what I had to go through at first, despite the fact that it was really tough. I simply had a gut feeling about something. I hoped it wasn't real, and I told myself that I was just doing it to calm my anxiety, but I think I knew it was true deep down within me. I took a lot of the recommendations and thought about them for a couple of days. After deliberating on how to approach the situation, I requested that my fiancée leave the baby with her mother so that we may spend the night together. I was successful. I made dinner and then sought to engage in a conversation about current events and how our lives had changed after the birth of the baby. I said that I had been suffering from extreme anxiety, which I believed was exacerbated in part by the fact that I was told I was infertile one minute and then informed that we were having a child the next. This made her defensive since she realized where I was going with it very quickly. She went on to explain that miracles do happen and that she couldn't believe that I didn't trust her when she said that. I told her that I understood where she was coming from, but I also asked if she could see things from her point of view, which she agreed to. We had a fight, and she ultimately declined to take the test. I reassured her that everything was okay and that I would leave it to her to deal with it. I tried to dismiss it, but she brought it up again and again during the night, even after I apologized and vowed not to bring it up in the future. She went on to say that she couldn't believe I thought of her in that way, and that I should be glad that we had a gorgeous healthy baby instead of accusing her of cheating. She ended by saying that she couldn't believe I thought of her in that way. That's when I decided to start questioning her. Something didn't feel quite right, but I knew I had to go ahead and take the test nonetheless. I took the test the next day and waited a few days before writing the paper. By the end of the week, I'd figured out she wasn't mine after all. I sobbed uncontrollably for about 2 days because I couldn't handle it any longer and had no idea what to do. I made an effort to spend as little time as possible in the house since I knew she would realize something was wrong right away if she came home. I was at a loss for what to say to alert her that I was aware of what was going on. I also contemplated whether or not to say anything since I was concerned that it might have an impact on my daughter's behavior. After much deliberation, I decided to notify her. Her response was predictable. She argued that the exam was invalid and that I should just abandon it altogether. As I indicated, the clinic had stated that there was absolutely no possibility that this could have been an error. She insisted on denying it, and I couldn't believe she persisted to deceive me in front of my face after all this time. She threatened to leave and take the child, despite the fact that she had nowhere else to go since her own mother refused to become involved in the situation. Whenever we aren't dealing with the baby, we tend to neglect each other completely. My relief comes from the fact that she has indicated she would be out in 2 months. My primary concern right now is whether or not she has the legal authority to abduct the child. I cherish my child more than anything else in the world, yet I refuse to stay with this woman. I understand that the child is not of my blood, but would having my name on the birth certificate be beneficial to him? At the absolute least, I'd want to share joint custody of my children. In order to sustain the baby, I provide more than half of the necessary funds. She would be unable to care for the baby if I were not there to help her. She will not be able to cover the cost. Even though I realize it's improbable that I'll be able to get possession of my children, is it worthwhile to fight for split custody? I can't bear the thought of losing my daughter. As much as I abhor what my fiancée did, I don't hold a grudge against her personally. What I can't convey enough is how tough it is to cope with the death of someone I care about dearly while simultaneously knowing that they would do such a horrific crime. Having to cease things with her is bad enough, but I don't believe I can handle not seeing my child for an extended period of time. Please advise on how I may be able to fight for joint custody if such a thing is even possible under the current conditions. Edit: if you feel the need to say things like she is not your daughter, please stop wasting your time. Obviously, I'm perfectly aware that she is not a blood related of mine. That doesn't take away from the fact that I've been her main caretaker from the day she was born. I've been taking care of her, changing her diapers, feeding her, and so on. When I think about it, it baffles me that some of you don't have the decency to understand that after spending time with her, I refuse to say she's no longer my child. What is the most difficult thing about being a kind person? I understand that this is Reddit, and I realize that I'm probably asking too much of some of you.